We know that it is a tradition for the most disingenuous and dishonest MAGA Republicans to defend whatever indefensible action Donald Trump took in the previous week on the Sunday shows. And of course, we know that Lindsey Graham, above all other Republicans, loves to do it. He loves to lie on behalf of Donald Trump. But what he doesn't like is pushback, which is exactly what he got today from Margaret Brennan. When she brought up the fact that Lindsey Graham was defending Donald Trump of breaking the law at the same time, he was trying to argue that the Biden administration had acted in some nefarious way against him, some weaponization of the DOJ. It was an incredible call-out that we are going to talk about. We're also going to talk about how angry Lindsey Graham got. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we can get into Lindsey Graham's defense of Trump, I want to hear a short bit of context on what he was defending from Rachel Maddow out right here.
You might recall that last week, Trump signed an executive order to punish a particular law firm because that law firm has done work for Democrats. Among other things, Trump's executive order would block anyone from that law firm from entering federal courthouses, which might make it difficult to be a lawyer in Washington, D.C. I'm just saying. The law firm naturally sued, and because the case was so important to Trump, and potentially because it was difficult to find any career prosecutors who really wanted to defend it, Attorney General Pam Bondi sent her own chief of staff, the Attorney General's chief of staff, to argue the case himself personally in federal court, bringing in like the biggest guns they got. And her chief of staff just got blown out of court by the judge. The Trump administration lost that with an exclamation point. The judge said Trump's order sent a chill down her spine. She said the whole legal profession was, quote, watching in horror what Trump was trying to do and what the Attorney General's chief of staff was trying and very much failing to defend in court. Pam Bondi and Trump's Justice Department are also apparently trying to launch an investigation into the otherwise totally normal process of funding shelters for migrants in New York City. I say they are trying to launch an investigation there because they seem to be having trouble with some of the fundamentals.
So we know that Donald Trump is constantly and still for some reason talking about the lawfare that was acted upon him. The weaponization of the DOJ. He went to his Department of Justice. And I say that very specifically his Department of Justice because that is how he views it, not as an independent arm of the executive branch, but as his own tool to go after his enemies. And so does Pam Bondi. Usually there's a bit of separation there. But she openly admitted yesterday or 2 days ago at this point that no, it is Donald Trump who is telling her exactly what to do. And she'll do it exactly how he says. Once again, this was the accusation made of the Biden administration. And if Merrick Garland had done his job, if he had been politically motivated, like Donald Trump and MAGA had said, Donald Trump wouldn't be he wouldn't be president right now. He'd be in jail, not because of some political motivation, but because Merrick Garland would have actually done his job. But with all of that in mind and the actual weaponization from Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham tried to defend him in this clip right here.
There were more executive orders from the president this week targeting some of the country's most prominent law firms, including Paul Weiss. He wants to restrict business activities of the firm, despite a federal judge ruling in a different case that it's unconstitutional. The president suspended security clearances at the firm. He stripped clearances from lawyers over at Covington and Burling as well because they were involved in representing former special counsel Jack Smith. Do you support this?
Yeah, I think all of these things. I think Jack Smith was politically motivated. I think the Russian hoax, a lot of people should have gone to jail and they didn't. I think the idea that President Trump was an agent of Russia was manufactured. The Steele dossier was based on lies and falsehoods coming from a source that said he never meant it to be used in the fashion it was used. I think Jack Smith's effort to prosecute President Trump for January 6th was politically motivated, and people who engage in trying to destroy President Trump, I don't mind him going after them in a lawful way. I don't mind.
Is this lawful? Is this good for the U.S. legal system, Senator? Because the president's trying to use government power to punish private business because he didn't like some of the work they had been doing.
Private business aided government power in a fashion to destroy Donald Trump's life. You know, on our side, nobody in your world gets it, but our people believe that the Justice Department was used as a weapon to destroy Trump's campaign and his business interests and to ruin his family. That they made up bogus charges and they proceeded in a fashion that was designed to destroy him politically and personally. I believe that. If these people involved pay a price, they got nobody but themselves to blame. That's
but these
what I
are
believe.
lawyers working on cases that you're making it sound like the work that they take on is somehow part of a conspiracy and they should be punished for it.
Yeah, I think these law firms were pushing legal theories that to me were designed for political outcomes more than legal outcomes. You know, we can have a debate about, you know, holding a lawyer accountable for his client's actions. I genuinely don't like that. But these law
That's
firms,
what this sounds like.
Jack Smith using the power of government, incorporating these law firms, in my view, were trying to disrupt and take down the Republican nominee for president. That this was an orchestrated effort, and Biden only regretted they didn't do it sooner. So it was politically motivated, and everybody with their fingerprints on it, I hope they pay a price.
So clearly a pretty unhappy Lindsey Graham, really just raising his voice, almost screaming, kind of screaming. Yeah, at the end at that point. But what's so interesting about the argument that he's trying to make is that Donald Trump should be able to commit lawfare. Donald Trump should be able to weaponize the DOJ because we're mad that Joe Biden allegedly did. Of course not true. But so when you're admitting in that statement, Lindsey Graham is, that you're saying that Donald Trump is mad about a thing, so he's going to do it. He's saying the law was broken to attack him. Now he's going to break the law to attack other people. And it's not even Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. It's just individual political actors who he's upset with, sometimes non-political actors. As in the case of this law firm, these are not people who were activists making statements on behalf of the Democratic Party. They were doing their jobs. But Donald Trump doesn't care. He is acting in a way that ultimately leads to greater intimidation. Because that is his inevitable goal here. It's not to just punish one group of people, but to send a message to a larger group. That is the intention. And it is what we see with all of Donald Trump's crackdowns on the First Amendment, which talk about Republican defense of the indefensible. Marco Rubio tried to stand up for, but was quickly called out over in this clip. Right here.
I want to ask you about a decision you made to revoke a student visa for someone at Columbia University this past week. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writes, the administration needs to be careful. It's targeting real promoters of terrorism, not breaking the great promise of a green card by deporting anyone with controversial political views. Can you substantiate any form of material support for terrorism, specifically to Hamas, from this Columbia student? Or was it simply that he was espousing a controversial political point of view?
Well, not just the student. We're going to do more. In fact, we every day now we're approving visa revocations, and if that visa led to a green card, the green card process as well. And here's why. It's very simple. When you apply to enter the United States and you get a visa, you are a guest. And you're coming as a student, you're coming as a tourist, or what have you. And in it, you have to make certain assertions. And if you tell us when you apply for a visa, I'm coming to the U.S. to participate in pro-Hamas events, that runs counter to the foreign policy interest of the United States of America. It's that simple. So you lied. You came. If you had told us that you were going to do that, we never would have given you the visa.
Now, you can certainly disagree with the actions of the statements, of the sentiments of Mood Kill, but the idea that an illegal resident in the United States and someone with a wife who is 8 months pregnant can be snatched up out of his community by, if you've seen the video too, just street-clothed, dressed officers of an agency he was not informed of because he was protesting. Using his First Amendment right didn't violate a law. And Marco Rubio continues to say that he didn't violate the law they made. That incredibly clear that they just want to suppress dissent with this decision, and that they don't think that they have to justify it in any legal way. That's what they've made clear. And what's so interesting at this point is, we don't know if they plan to deport him. Maybe not interesting is the word, but scary. Again, they took a man from his home without informing him of why kept him in New Jersey. Then, overnight, moved him to Louisiana, did not inform his family, and are holding him there for a purpose. We don't know. This is again all about intimidation and the suppression of opposition. And it's why we need to fight back so much more, which is what Jasmine Crockett talked about right here.
Texas, Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you squeezing us in before you go to church. This has been a rough 72 hours for Democrats. I want to play some of what Democratic Senate Leader Schumer told me on The Lead on Friday about his decision to vote with the Republicans to fund the government. Take a listen.
A government shutdown gives Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge almost complete power as to what to close down, because they can decide what is an essential service. If they determine that SNAP, kids shouldn't get food, is not essential, they can just cut it out summarily. They could fire half the workers in the federal government. It would have been a far worse consequence.
So he's saying that the path that House Democrats wanted would have presented a worse consequence. Is he wrong?
He's absolutely wrong. I mean, look at the reality of the votes, right? I understand that the American people are frustrated. Please believe many of us did not sleep because we were calling and trying to impress upon the senators the importance of pushing back in this moment. And as you saw, we had all but one Democrat in the House that voted for this. So that's 212 Democrats in the House. And then you had the vast majority of senators vote for it or vote against it as well. And so the idea that Chuck Schumer is the only one that's got a brain in the room and the only one that can think through all of the pros and cons is absolutely ridiculous. And Jake, you and I both know that this administration could care less about whether or not they violate the law. We know that we've had to rely heavily upon the courts. And I want to say, as you're talking about the polling on my party, I want to say that it is the Democratic attorney generals and some governors that are standing up against this administration and bringing those lawsuits and winning every single time. They are losing in court. Could we do a better job of making sure that the American people know that we are winning in the courts? We probably could. But at the end of the day, it's still Democrats that are winning for the American people.
Now, more than ever, do we need to use our voices to push back against this administration? When people see the bending of the knee, the pre-capitulation that we saw from the billionaire class, from the mainstream press, from some elected Democrats, they think it's over. But unless we actually fight, it is up to us to not win every battle, but to be there for every battle, to make sure we can continue to combat them. And it's certainly what we're going to be doing on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.